Here we are again, another episode of Market Weekly, where we take you around the world, across the markets, from the big market moves, and also looking at the trends happening in the global market. This is Market Weekly, brought to you by Nairametrics Television. My name is Frank Fagbo. Let's start with some of the top stories making the rounds in the market. We're seeing what is happening. Our trade partners, China and India, dominates trade with Nigeria reaching 20.3 trillion naira in 2024. We're going to keep you abreast as regards that, and also looking at what is happening in the capital market. Geregu Power and United Capital, both paying dividend. What is it for investors? You're going to find out about that. We're also going to be taking a look at what is happening in the Nigerian creative sector. Nigerian artists has raked in 58 billion naira as regards royalties. The Whiskey, Davido, Burna Boys, all these big artists that we have in this country, many of them raking in top royalties, $58 billion naira, and that's some decent sum if you ask me. Looks like I'm going to change profession because these guys are making a truckload of money. Let's also look at some other stories. Seplat CEO makes some massive insider purchase. Are you going to be staying on the side of the whales? It looks like some massive movement is happening in the market as regards their stocks, and also looking at what is happening with the S&P 500, some correction, Trump tariff also in the picture. All the stories is what we're going to be covering. Let's delve right in. Let's start with some of our biggest trade partners, China and India. Nigeria's trade with China literally reached a staggering sum of 20.3 trillion naira in 2024, and it solidified them as the country's largest trading partners. Let's take a look at some of the breakdown of the trade. We're seeing China remains Nigeria's biggest import partner, accounting for a significant portion of machineries, electronics, and manufactured goods. We're also seeing that India dominates crude oil exports, purchased a major share of Nigeria's petroleum product, and despite the large trade volume, Nigeria runs a trade deficit with China by importing far more than it exports. And why does all of this matter? We're seeing our trade imbalance concerns. Nigeria's heavy dependence on Chinese import highlights our weak manufacturing sector. Without domestic production, we're seeing that the country will remain vulnerable to a lot of the currency inflations and the global supply chain shocks. If you also take a look at what is happening with our crude oil dependence is one major reason why all of this matters. Because while India's oil demand provides a steady revenue stream for the country, Nigeria's over-reliance on crude oil is quite dangerous because it looks like we're sitting on eggshell. Who knows what is going to happen in the global market as regards the price of crude, knowing fully well what is happening with Donald Trump and all his shenanigans. Regarding the oil and gas sector. The big question is, will Nigeria's push for diversification, as well as looking beyond China and India as regards trade relationship, do you think that would affect our economy? And also looking at what is happening with our policy makers. Can the policy makers develop industrial strategies to reduce import dependence? Because we need to reduce import dependence to make sure our trade deficit with some countries is corrected, because it's not balanced. It's corrected because it's not quite balanced, and we need to look at that. Let's shift gears to what is happening in our local market. Dividend season, United Capital and Geregu Power reward investors with dividend. It's dividend season, and some Nigerian companies are making big payouts. The likes of United Capital declared a final dividend payout of 50 kobo per share, maintaining its reputation for strong shareholders' returns. The qualification date is fast approaching, meaning that investors who hold shares before the deadline will get their payout. Geregu Power is also one of those. They've announced a dividend payout of 8 naira 50 kobo per share, reinforcing its status as a high dividend stock in the power sector. The dividend stocks is what it looks like. A lot of investors are pitching their tent around dividend stocks because one impressive thing about investing is seeing your capital gains as well as some cash flows coming in from your stocks. That's something exciting as an investor. Let's move on to what is happening across different other sectors. Let's take a look at what is happening in the creative sector. Nigerian artists earn over 58 billion naira in royalties. Nigerian artists made 58 billion naira in royalties from Spotify in 2024, reinforcing Afrobeat's dominance on the global stage. On the global stage, more Nigerian musicians crossed the $100,000 mark and $1 million earning threshold, as a matter of fact, proving Nigeria's music industry revenue potential. The reports raises questions about how local investors and record labels can scale their successes beyond streaming royalties. Let's move on to what is happening in the energy sector. Seplat Energy CEO buys 50,000 shares worth 285 million naira. Seplat CEO Roger Brown has increased his stake in the company, acquiring 50,000 more units of shares that is worth 285 million naira. Insider buyer is often seen as a bullish signal in the market. Would you be pitching your tent around Seplat because of this big move made by the CEO? Tell me in the comment section and let's hear from you. Let's move on to what is happening in the global market. We're seeing what is happening with Trump. Trump threatens 200% tariff on EU wines and champagne. Donald Trump has threatened 200% tariff on European wines and champagne, fueling US-EU trade tensions. European luxury goods companies could suffer revenue losses if US buyers turn to alternative imports. The move may just be a bargaining tactic, but if implemented, it could. But if all of this is implemented, it could impact the global supply chain as regards. It could impact the global supply chain and also affect inflation rate. Let's look at what is happening in the market. The S&P 500. There seems to be some correction as regards the S&P 500 is officially entered its correction territory, falling more than 10% from its recent highs. What are the key drivers of this move? We're seeing what is happening as regards high inflation and interest rates are big concerns, and we're seeing market sentiment moving because of that. We're seeing market sentiment playing out because of high inflation and interest rate. Tech stocks has also been hit the hardest because we're seeing all of this playing out. The rising bond yield is making growth stocks less attractive to a couple of investors, and that's why we're seeing what is playing out as regards the S&P 500. One other thing happening in the US is that some major US companies are experiencing massive layoffs. Because of the uncertainties in the market, several major US companies have announced layoff as economic uncertainties looms. We're seeing that tech, retail, and even the banking sectors have seen significant job cuts due to rising costs and slowing consumer spending. The labor market remains under pressure, raising a lot of concerns about the potential economic slowdown that is most likely going to be experienced in 2025. And you sure know that we can have the conversations around markets weekly without taking a look at what is happening in our equities market. What happened from Monday down to Friday, we're going to find out. Let's take a look at how the NGX played out. The first trading day of the week, we're seeing the all-share index rose by 0.88% gains in the market, 106,621 points is the all-share index. And we're seeing the market capitalization, 66.76 trillion naira. Some of the volumes traded, 364 million shares traded for the day, valued at 17.62 billion naira. Let's take a look at some of the top gainers and then the top losers. We're seeing Etana featuring amongst the top gainers, 9.96% gains in the market. Transcore, 9.91% gains in the market as well, featuring amongst its top gainers. FCMB, 9.89% gains in the market. And then we take a look at what happened at the bottom of the pyramid, at the bottom of the chart as regards Monday Monday, which was the first trading day of the week. The top losers, VFD Group, featured amongst the top losers for the day, 9.92% decline in the market. And then we take a look at what happened with some of the top losers. Those at the bottom of the pyramid, we're seeing VFD Group leading the pack as regards the bottom of the pyramid. 9.92% decline in the market as regards VFD Group. And then we're seeing International Energy Assurance also featuring amongst its top losers. 8.72% decline in the market. Cadbury featuring amongst its top losers. 8% decline in the market. And then we'll move on to what happened on Tuesday, the 11th of March. On Tuesday, we're seeing that the market slipped by 0.43% decline in the market. The all-share index closed at 106,167 point. The market capitalization 66.48 trillion naira. Valued, some of the volumes traded 324 million shares traded, valued at 7.91 billion naira. 7.91 billion naira. Let's take a look at number of deals for the day as of Tuesday. 12,000 deals, and that's some 12,100 deals, if you ask me. That's some decent numbers of deals that happened in the day. Some of the top gainers as at Tuesday, we're seeing livestock featuring amongst the top gainers, 9.93% gains in the market. Cornerstone Insurance, 9.25% gains in the market. And then we're seeing International Energy Insurance also featuring amongst its top gainers, 8.99% gains in the market. Some of the top losers we're seeing Mercure featuring amongst its top losers, 10% decline in the market. And then ABC Trans featuring amongst its top losers for the day, 7.98% decline in the market. Dark Communications featuring amongst its top losers, 7.46% decline in the market. And then we'll move on to what happened at the mid-trading day of the week. We're seeing Wednesday, on the 12th of March, Wednesday, the all-share index, 106,090 points with some 0.07% decline in the market. The market capitalization closed at 66.43 trillion naira. 66.43 trillion naira. The volume traded 1.49 billion number of shares traded for the day, valued at 10.25 billion naira. Number of deals, we're seeing 11,748 deals. Some of the top gainers, we're seeing Tantalizers amongst the top gainers. That's some 9.79% gains in the market. NSL Tech also featuring amongst its top gainers, 9.68% gains in the market. Cavity featuring amongst its top gainers. That's the first time we're seeing Cavity featuring amongst its top gainers for the week, 9.09% gains in the market. And then the top losers, Corn Oil featuring amongst its top losers, 10% decline in the market. And then Beggar Paints featuring amongst its top losers, 9.81% decline in the market. International Energy Assurance featuring amongst its top losers again for the second time, 9.79% decline in the market. And we move on to what happened at the penultimate trading day, Thursday, 13th of March. We're seeing the all-share index, 106,220 points with some 0.12% gains in the market. Market capitalization stood at 66.51 trillion naira. The volumes traded, 341 million shares traded for the day, valued at 16.65 billion naira. Numbers of deals, we're seeing 11,233 deals for the day. And then the top gainers, we're seeing UPDC featuring amongst its top gainers. That's some 9.92% gains in the market. International Breweries, 9.62% gains. And then Royal Exchange featuring their 9.59% gains in the market. Some of the top losers, we're seeing UPL featuring amongst the top losers, 10% decline in the market. And then Academy Insurance also featuring. And then Academy also featuring amongst its top losers, 9.66% decline in the market. Red Star Express featuring amongst its top losers, 9.32% decline in the market. And that's it for the Thursday market. And then we'll move on to what happened on the final trading day. The thank God it's Friday approach to the market. Let's see how that played out on Friday. The all-share index, 105,955 points is what the 105,955 points. That's some 0.25% decline in the market. We're seeing what happened as regards the market capitalization, 66.35 trillion naira as regards the market capitalization. Some of the volumes traded for the day, 750 million shares traded for the day, which was valued at 11.05 billion naira, 11.05 billion naira. The numbers of deals for the day, 10,584 deals for the day. We're going to take a look at some of the top gainers as regards the last trading day. Some of the top gainers, we're seeing Royalties also featuring amongst its top gainers for the day, 10% gains in the market. Link Insurance, 9.57% gains in the market. And then Guinea Insurance also featuring amongst its top gainers, 9.52% gains in the market. Tantalizers featuring amongst its top losers, 9.85% decline in the market. And this is the second time we're seeing Tantalizers featuring amongst its top losers. The second top loser for the day was seeing Jazz Bank featuring amongst its top losers for the day, 9.72% decline in the market. And then we're seeing Nimates featuring amongst its top losers, 9.45% decline in the market. And that's how we wrap up the trading activities for the week. The big question now is, will Nigeria take steps to address its trade imbalance with China and India? And will the dividend payout continue just like what we saw from Geregu Power and also United Capital? All these conversations is what we've had on this episode of Markets Weekly. Catch up with me every week where we take stock of the market as regards what is happening in our domestic market and the global market at large. This was brought to you by Nairametrics Television. My name is Frank Fagbo. Keep watching, liking, and sharing. Don't go anywhere. This is Nairametrics TV.